I am black. I am gay. I am disabled. I am black.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back!
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
Hey everybody, a little bit of a flub there. It wouldn't have been as bad if I didn't have the stream feeding back on another tab. But you know, whatever. Just whatever. It's good to have you around. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Are we over the hump? No, I always feel like I'm just starting to climb on a Wednesday. Maybe one day I'll get over the hump on a Wednesday and we could just coast. But what the hell? Oh, you know what? Here's a fun little thing for you guys that I'll show. Remind me to show you this on the flip side. But today, my mother wanted to take Aurora to go to ride a couple of rides at Playland, at Kittyland. And because there's absolutely nobody there during the week, and it's already the end of July and all that stuff. And I don't know. I think of my mom and Aurora going to even a local theme park, and I'm just like, I can't let them go alone. Can't. I don't know. It's just something about it. So I said, okay, fine. So I went with them, and I drove them there and all that stuff. We were hanging out, walking around, and she was about to go on she was going to go on her first ride. It was the kiddie coaster. And she's waiting on line. She looks around at me, Aurora does, and she gives me this smile. And her her front tooth is like wiggling. It's about to come out. And I've been telling her, really work on that because it's ready. Trust me, it's ready. She turns around at me, she gives me this smile, and I see this tooth like sticking out sideways. I said, hold on a second. And I ran over to like a concession stand real quick, and I grabbed myself a napkin, went over there, said, come here. And I plucked it right out, right there on line before her first ride, before she got onto the kiddie coaster. And she's like, and she has this big gap now and all that stuff. And so I have the video of it. I said, that's it. It's coming out right now. So I'm going to show that to you on the flip side. In the meantime, we have Robert Phoenix coming on in a couple of minutes. In a couple of minutes, we're just gonna get caught up. It's been a while since I spoke to Robert, and it was like I think it was right before the Iran war kicked off, because we were talking about an eclipse over Antarctica, and he was talking about this is going to be a pretty opportune window. If anything is going to get kicked off in Iran, this is going to be it. And that was the last time we spoke on the air. So I wanted to bring him on, just not only to talk about, that, not necessarily call it a victory lap, because who the hell wants to be right about this shit, but also to talk about a few other things, including these fires. Again, another year that is chock full of very strange fires. And we've had the successive years now of strange fires as well. And don't think I haven't thought about when we were talking about the NDAA and everybody being up in arms about the kind of leverage that Israel gains over the United States by having this deepening partnership that really entangles all of our supply chains, especially on military and technology fronts, emerging research and development and all that stuff. But in the middle of all that in the middle of all of that, those clauses was directed energy weapons, which, you know, like I said, this is not going to do anybody any favors who made it a point to go out there and fight with anybody who wanted to meme Jewish space lasers into the new media sphere of consciousness there. So the memes will live on. But I want to bring that up with Robert, perhaps, to see, you know, what kind of thoughts he's given directed energy weapon usage with a lot of these fires, because we know that over 90% of them are arson. That was, you know, 2018, our own Department of the Interior talked about it. So over 90% of it is arson. On the West Coast last year or the year before, we know not only arson, but a lot of non-citizen committed arson too. But there's churches that are burning. And there's so many anomalous things that happen with these fires still, where, you know, the trees are spared, but any kind of wood that has come into contact with metal is not. And that bridges can actually, with no loads on the bridge, and just the wood on top of the steel beams burning, you see the steel beams starting to sag. Hey, that makes no sense. It really makes no sense. So there are things like that I often wonder about. And when I realized that Robert had been talking so much about this being such a fiery summer, you know, a summer that has so many other big things attached to the billing. It's 250 years of America, and of course, you know, it all kicked off with a war. So I'm just gonna throw all that out there. Just see how the hell's he doing? How are you guys doing? I'm all right. I'm all right over here. You know who's not all right? Our Senate, our Congress, which gets me so fucking, oh god, I just get so angry. I saw this from Politico pop up. Mike, what's his name? John Thune. He's the Senate Majority Leader. Oh man, it doesn't matter who the hell it is. I want to throat punch them all. I really can't take it anymore. Then again, I haven't been able to take it anymore for so many years that I guess I can take it. And I guess we will take it, won't we? Republicans start pondering another debt limit hike as midterms loom. Here's a quote for you. $40 trillion in debt seems to me should get our attention, says Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Republicans raised the debt limit by $5 trillion last year. Now they're already thinking about how to head off another dive over the fiscal cliff on President Donald Trump's watch. Everybody's watch. Everybody's watch. The baton gets passed. There's always an excuse when it's a Democrat, mainly that the Democrat is trying to spend their way out of some problem that the Republican caused. That's their default picture. But, you know, the same infrastructure keeps getting built and maintained. That is government, surveillance, war making, all that other shit. Independent forecasters predict the U.S. will reach the X date, the ultimate deadline for preventing U.S. debt default, sometime between next summer and early 2028. So raise the debt ceiling. And $40 trillion is just, you know, here's a great thing for the waffling John Thune and all of his friends over there in Congress. I'm pretty sure that the Doge report claimed to have found somewhere around $300 billion that could right off the top be saved. Right off the top. That includes all of the Social Security fraud, that was all the anomalies there. Everything put together is like $300 billion. That's a nice little payment. You could take at least a third of $1 trillion off of there. That's nice. 40 trillion is a bit concerning, he says. Then make the fucking spending cuts permanent and pay down the debt, you piece of living, breathing shit. You piece of living shit. I just found out why my tax return from 2025 just took 5 months to reach me, whatever the hell it actually was. It's not much, but you know, when you're trying to prepare for a new baby and a whole bunch of other things, you say, well, every little bit can help, and this can be kind of strategic. I just realized that I owed a couple $100s to the state of New York from 2024. And the feds were holding it for some reason, and they wanted to make sure that that was paid off. A couple $100s that they held it back. And of course, they didn't tell me this. For the last 5 months, it was, we need another 60 days to decide what we're going to do with your blah, 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 blah. Can you believe this shit? That's on top of getting a fine 2 months ago for $252 from 2023. I don't know what the hell it was. I asked my accountant. He said, probably the statute of limitations was about to end, and they just sent it over to grab whatever they can. $252 because you know why? Because I didn't send an estimated tax payment in 2023. I didn't send any estimated tax payments. Not that I didn't pay my taxes. It's just that I got fined because I had the nerve to wait until the end of the year to pay everything I owe. Oh, that's the operative word. Because the crackheads in D.C., they needed a little something to hold them over. They didn't like that I didn't give them a little something to hold them over, that I waited to the end of the year just to pay what I owe the crackheads in D.C. They just need a little something to rub on their gums. Just a little something to rub on their gums to hold them over. Yeah, the dogs come barking if you hold on to just $100 extra of what you own. The dogs come barking. $100. That's all it is. And then we got to listen to these monkey fucks talk about trillions in debt that they have racked up in our name. And then when we approach some fucking imaginary debt ceiling, then it's like, well, maybe we should raise it $5 trillion more because we're going to spend it in a couple of years. It'll all be spent. They all deserve every time they go to work. Every time, every last one of these senators and House representatives show up to work at either the Senate chambers, or the House, wherever the hell it is, a throat punch to each of them as they walk in and a slap across the face as they walk out until things start improving, until we get our money back, until they do what they're supposed to do. Throat punches in, slap across the face out. They should be demeaned. They should be absolutely just, I don't know, piss-filled water balloons. They should be humiliated every day of the year. Every day of the year. Don't care what color the tie is. Piss-filled water balloons to all of them. God forbid you hold on to $100 extra. God forbid. The dogs will come barking. And we're talking about $5 trillion debt ceiling increases. Debt ceiling increases. Good Lord. Good Lord. Anyway, hello to you all. I hope you're doing well. Oh, here's another one for you real quick. Ohio's governor, Mike DeWine, he calls Trump's plan to deport Haitians a mistake. You'll be sending people back to hell, which A, not my problem, get out. B, we were all assured by annoying rich liberal celebrities that Haiti was just the jewel of the Caribbean. They all became very, very indignant when one person, maybe it could have been Donald Trump, who called Haiti a shithole. They all wore matching T-shirts and everything else like that. You say, well, Mike DeWine is not a liberal. I'd say, oh yeah, well, you know what? There's very, very little to separate anybody anymore. I wonder what people are going to say, because here he is saying, no, we got to keep people here. And I know that liberals would want that. They want everybody to stay. But at the same time, are they going to admit that Haiti is hell? Whatever. Okay, so let's bring our friend on, because I haven't spoken to Robert Phoenix in a while, and it's going to be great just to see how the hell everything's been with him. And here he is. Robert, how you feeling?
I'm actually feeling pretty damn good, Frank. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear it. It's been an interesting summer. Have you felt patriotic and having a good time down there?
Hold on, let me jack my mic in so we get a better audio. Patriotic. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's always, I find patriotism kind of on my own terms.
Okay.
And, sometimes my version of patriotism isn't all that popular. But in that regard, I'd say yes.
Well, the last time you were on the show, we were talking about an eclipse that was coming up over Antarctica, and how you saw it as an opportune window for operations to kick off in Iran. If that is of course, something that you were considering, if you were a government or anything else like that, with everything, all the rumblings that was going on at that point. Well, you were pretty spot on with that. So I guess there's nothing really to ask about that, but I will ask about this. Over the weekend, we had the first act of what could possibly be defined as a bridge, a gap between the largely now irrelevant in the news, Ukraine and Russian war. It's going on, it's still out there, but it's just not sexy anymore. So it's irrelevant, but it's continuing to go on. And then, of course, this new one in the Middle East with Iran and Israel and the United States and all that other stuff. Apparently, there's been an act of war. Ukraine shot some boats or something else that had, links to Iran, Russia partnership. People are wondering if this is now an opportunity being seized to merge both theaters of war, especially since one is completely irrelevant. And maybe this will, boost its relevance again and kind of merge all of our operations. What do you see about this? Do you think this is something that could be a possibility or a probability?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's any coincidence that Zelensky and Netanyahu were in Washington for Lindsey Graham's send-off. I think that, he's somebody who clearly had a role to play in both of those worlds. And, don't even get me started on that, but yeah, I think it's an opportune experience, or it's an opportunity for people to visually link Zelensky and Netanyahu in the same space. It's not just, well, there they are, they're hanging out, and maybe they're talking to each other in code. I think actually placing them in physical time space together kind of cements that potential partnership and bringing them into a wider war, which again, I'm not real in favor of. But when you look at, and I'm going to drop a little astrology in here because it's kind of what I do. When you look at the sun signs of the three main players in this so-called war, you have Zelensky, who is an Aquarian, which is an air sign. And then you have Netanyahu, who's a Libra, who is an air sign. And then you have Donald Trump, who's a Gemini, who's an air sign. So you put all three together, you get a grand trine. And in astrology, that's when it's like a force multiplier. So from an esoteric standpoint, right, you would look at something like that and say, well, wow, that's a winning combination. Or at the very least, it's a combination where if they were all together and were on point and had the same message and same strategic deployment, it could be very, very powerful, and powerful in a way that has to do with the merging of those energies. Not powerful in the sense that I have any kind of like moral connection to what that power looks like, but I think it's interesting. And one of the things that I've studied a lot of is Saul Alinsky and the rules for radicals, which I'm sure you've gotten into here in your program at least once or twice.
Yeah.
So one of the key things for Alinsky is that you don't want to have, they called them actions, right? You don't want to have an action last too long.
And what they call it becomes a drag.
It becomes a drag. When an action lasts too long, it becomes a drag. And when we were in COVID territory, speaking of Anthony Fauci, there was a danger that would last too long, right? As an action, we'll bring COVID in as an action, and that it would last too long, and that it would have a net negative effect when it would last too long. And so Alinsky would be in favor of dropping that action and initiating something new. And I think they got as much mileage out of it as possible. Most of the people were not buying whatever Biden was selling with COVID. He went to the Supreme Court and tried to get the Supreme Court to rule on universal masks and universal injections, and they tossed it out. So they took that to the limit, and almost immediately they went right into Ukraine. It was like there was very little lag time. It's like, okay, we're done with COVID now, and here comes Ukraine. What's interesting is that from a sports perspective, and I know you're a sports guy, a lot of times they will telegraph stuff with sports. I know it sounds really crazy, but they'll telegraph stuff with sports. And the winner of the championships in the NBA that year were the Golden State Warriors. And I was watching it, and it was like, if you knew anything about the Warriors, they were like almost like bottom feeders before that season. And then, Jordan Poole started channeling Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson all in one. He had an incredible year. They went on this like crazy hot streak, and they wind up winning the chip. And the color scheme for Golden State was blue and yellow. And this was even before the Ukraine stuff started to hit off, right? And I said, we're going into Ukraine. I know it. I feel it. This is the color scheme. There's a little bit of buzz about it. So sure enough, that's what happened. And it was right on the heels of COVID. So again, we ask ourselves the question, how long is an action like Ukraine, or how long is an action like Iran going to last before it becomes a drag? And the time scale for these things to occur and then become a drag is faster and faster and faster and faster. So they're shrinking. So you have to move people along at a much quicker rate. It's almost like the decay of novelty in some ways. We have such short attention spans.
Robert, we were talking about this last night, just very briefly, because yesterday we saw a headline that I think it was from the one post or another that said that Iran had just unveiled some new stealth drone bombers, and we're saying to ourselves, I'm saying to myself, wait. I mean, this was supposed to be a limited engagement for 3 weeks, and that we overwhelmed them so hard in the first 72 hours that they essentially had no war-making ability anymore, that they had no navy, and now here we are months into it, and every other week there is a 3-minute ceasefire, and then the president says we're going to hit them harder than ever before because they've managed to make some kind of an attack. And now here, not only do they still have missiles left and the ability to counterfire or actually even just go out there and drop a bomb somewhere, but I mean, obviously they have some really good research and development that's still going on too, because they are unveiling new drone technology. Who knows? Maybe it's consumer grade Costco drones. Who knows? But it's not over. It's just dragging. And this is something that from the get-go, people were. You want to talk about shelf life of this thing? I mean, we all collectively rolled our eyes. It's like, oh, come on. To kick off the 250th summer. I mean, geez. So I don't know where the hell this goes now that they're unveiling new technology, and seems to be at least one attempt to merge these now two very unpopular theaters of war.
Yeah, no, it's what you just brought up is almost like right out of Orwell. If you've ever seen many people have read the book, and the first movie, I think there's been two, one with Edmund O'Brien, which is the black and white film. I think it's from like 58 or something like that. And then the more recent version, which actually came out in 1984 with Richard Burton. They're both terrifying in their own way. But one of the things that, as a child, I remember watching 1984 for the first time, it had made my head spin. It just really made my head spin. And I'm trying to track like what's going on with the news in the background. And it's like, well, we're at war with Oceania this week, right? And then the next week we're not at war with Oceania. And then, then we're at war with Oceania again. And if you follow that, it makes absolutely no sense. And it's not supposed to make any sense. It's supposed to confuse people. And when we get these dispatches about what's going on in Iran, and we win, we don't win, it's like it's right out of Orwell. And it's basically done. It's like a psyop so that it completely confuses people, that we don't know what's up or what's down, or if we're close or not close. Part of that has to do with how Trump processes information. And I don't know if you saw the interview with Robert Barnes and Judge Napolitano, but if you haven't, I recommend it because Barnes has.
It was just what, 2 days ago?
Yeah. So I'm just going to summarize just a little bit of it because Barnes has some interesting things to say. He knows he's got some people that are kind of close to the administration, and apparently Trump processes information really strangely. Like he processes information through some form of inversion. And if you tell him that we're losing and we have to get out, he will not leave. He will double down and he will be absolutely stubborn and obstinate because he doesn't want to lose. So when they tell him that we're winning and we've taken care of business and we can leave now, or we can't, when that happens, he feels good. And he'll say, okay, well, maybe we should think about leaving. But then somebody will come along and tell him a different story about, oh no, we're actually not winning. So he's spinning around too, right? So when we see these things where we're in, we're out, we're winning, it has to do in a lot of ways with who's telling him what, the very small circle of influence that he surrounded himself with, and this weird kind of prefrontal lobe sort of inversion, like thinking and processing that he's got going on. So it's also part of this kind of what I would call the Oceania effect, where the war is over, the war is not over. We're going to sit down and we're going to meet with them. We're not meeting with them. Iran says we're not negotiating. We're sitting down. I mean, part of this also has to do with disinformation in the CIA. And I think, who was it? Was it Bill Casey? There was one of the guys from the CIA. He basically said that when the American people don't know what's up or down or right or left, we will have done our job. We will have confused them to the point where they don't know where anything is going. And when that happens, we can do anything we want. Yeah, and I feel like we're in that place now.
It's a very famous quote, and I heard that someone sent me a couple of timestamps of that discussion between Robert Barnes and Judge Napolitano, because that's where I heard Barnes say that Rich Barris has actually been brought in to very, at least closely advised now to a degree or one degree or another. I'm trying to get Rich back on the show sometime soon. The president and or vice president with us, because a lot of what he's pulling from with the polling here domestically is catching their eye, and Rich has caught a lot of shit for delivering what he sees as bad news, but I know that he only ever does it because he wants the president to win. And to your point there too about picking up how one person or another processes information. I never really assume that Trump wants to do anything other than get down to work and build and do stuff. So I know he was never a big fan of Iran, especially Iran, the idea of Iran having nuclear capabilities and all that stuff. That's a long time policy prescription of his, that they should never have that. So this whole situation is not crazy. I just always wonder who baited him into doing it right now, why this had to be done right now instead of cleaning up domestically, and then maybe leaving his successor with the idea of going out and remaking the world, because I don't know, in reestablishing new footholds elsewhere. It's all very confusing. And that's what and going back to Lindsey Graham and some of the the war makers in the past and the present and the future here. What did you think about Lindsey Graham's funeral, just in general, or just Lindsey Graham's exit? I don't know. I'm interested in people's theories about that, and also Mitch McConnell. That's another weird one.
Yeah, the Mitch McConnell thing is like really strange. And look, if the guy's not dead, he's completely incapacitated, right? He's probably in a coma. That would be the best case scenario with McConnell. If you watched him or followed him over the course of the last year, I mean, he could barely walk. How many times did he have like a stroke or a mini stroke? Right, he was barely completing his sentences. Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Sorry.
So yeah, it's like, look, it's not like the guy was really healthy. Okay, it's not like he was doing laps around the White House. He was in bad shape, right? So when something like this happens, if you have any kind of memory for how he's dragging his ass around and not even really completing sentences, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's only one of two conclusions. As far as Lindsey Graham goes, yeah, man, what a weird dude, right? Like, just a very, very strange person. And there have been a number of dudes who have come out of the woodworks and had very lurid tales about their relationship with him, and his extracurricular activities, and what he liked to sort of indulge in, right? And to me, he's just a classic neocon, and he likes to butter up to people that have power, right? He was very good at navigating power, and I think he was very effective in that. If you talk to, and again, this is just third party stuff, but anybody who ever hung out with Lindsey Graham really liked him, right? He was not a dick. He was always kind of funny and gracious and self-effacing, right? Like, Tucker Carlson spoke really fondly about Lindsey Graham. And by the way, he's not the only one, right? So somebody like that can actually get a lot done because, people like them. And, at the same time, this is just my opinion, right? At the same time, deeply compromisable. And, me as an astrologer, I tend to look at these things through an astrological lens. I've done a deep dive in his chart, and his chart is the chart where the person is deeply compromisable, that he could make some very unsound moral choices. And that's not just me speculating. That's me actually, kind of tearing it apart and chopping it up. So like, there's that side of him. And what I don't like is the fact that they're going to anoint his sister, which I think is really weird, and then his sister goes through these name changes. She goes from, what is it, Nordone to Nordone Graham, and now she's just Graham. And it's like, it's just really bizarre and, incredibly nepotistic. And Sean Hannity, of all people, I was surprised that Sean Hannity was surprised that she's running for office. And it's like, I mean, it's just.
She's actually declared her candidacy?
Yes,
Oh.
absolutely. And you step back and you look at this stuff, and it's like, it's just, we're entering into this time where it's like the theater of the absurd. Like, we're going to see things that just are not going to make a lot of sense, and not just make a lot of sense, but some of the activity that is happening globally, some of which you and I talked about a little bit earlier today, some of which I haven't even brought to the table. But again, it's like kind of striking and weird and unusual. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are these like open air fight clubs that are starting to pop up like all over the world. Have you been tracking any of this?
Open air fight club? No, I haven't. I mean, in an organized kind of a way, because
Well, however you organize like an open air fight club, right? Let's bunch of dudes showing up in an open space, and in most cases they'll put on gloves. In some cases they won't. And I've been watching videos of these popping up now, like mushrooms, and once it hits like TikTok, they'll push the algorithm and it'll start to go viral. And somebody on Twitter today, because I brought it up on Twitter, a couple of examples of it, and brought it up on Twitter, and this one gal said, "Oh yeah, they're even like doing it with women. Women are starting their own versions of these fight clubs." And then astrologically, there's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, and Aries is all about fighting, right? It's all about fighting, and you're an Aries, right?
I am.
Aries don't like to back down. They take on challenges. They're martial in terms of their stance with the world. It's a really and the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, dude, this thing hasn't happened in like 60,000 years. I mean, it's we're living in very, very unusual astrological times. We talked about a little bit about the Barbeau basket, which we're just starting to come out of. I think today was like the cradle, like the final day of it, with the full moon and Aquarius, playing a role in there as well. Yeah, man. I mean, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Well, I gotta say, I don't know. You're talking about Brave New World a little bit more. There are so many. There's a convergence of dystopian novel themes that are all over the place.
Yeah,
we are almost fully. I mean, so right over the target as far as Brave New World goes. With the way that everything that is natural is becoming is slowly and actually in a more of an accelerated way becoming a perversion. We're seeing. I was just watching. Holy shit! I don't know if you saw this, but Sam Altman of ChatGPT.
Saw it.
You saw
Terrifying.
This. Okay,
Terrifying.
Hold on. Let me play. First of all, before I play this, let me just say, Zach Payne, Red Pill 78, just wanted to say hello to Robert for me. So Zach says hello. I gotta good love Zach. We got to get back on the show. He just has such a busy broadcast schedule. I feel like we haven't spoken in forever. But hold on, where the hell is this? This is insane. Hold on. You're bringing up Brave New World and all this kind of like strange strangeness. He's on with what's this guy's name again? He's a Jimmy Fallon. That's right. Let me get Robert up here. So Sam Altman, he is another one of these billionaire tech guys. He's gay, and he bought himself a baby. Here's this recurring thing again, and listen to what he says about this. Is just awful.
And do you use ChatGPT when raising your baby?
I do. I mean, I feel kind of bad about it because we have this like genius level at everything intelligence sitting there like waiting to unravel the mysteries of humanity. And I'm like, why does my kid stop dropping his pizza on the floor and laughing? Like,
yeah.
And so I feel like I'm not asking a good enough question, but it is, I cannot imagine having gone through the, like figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT. Clearly people did it for a long time, no problem.
Yes.
But
the laugh, essentially the laugh track going on over here. Robert, can you imagine having a loving mother replaced by ChatGPT because Sam Altman wanted to buy you? This is. I mean, we can talk about nobody studies Brave New World enough. This is fucking crazy. As far as the Fight Club thing goes, I know that the internet is curating all of this daily violent, this recommendation stuff. Here we are trying to, fight a way to just fight for a way to reach our old subscribers. Subscriber count means nothing anymore. But what we are getting recommended every day from people we don't want to see are fights and random acts of violence, racial acts of violence, always usually going in one way. And it's just, this is the other thing that's going on here. It's insane.
Yeah. So look, I want to just talk a little bit about the Sam Altman thing and the baby thing. again, I'm just going to bring a little bit of astrology in here. We are in a phase where Pluto is in Aquarius, okay? And that started formally, I believe it was the day that Trump got inaugurated. Like it's like he got inaugurated when Pluto was like going into Aquarius. Like that's a big deal, a really big deal. So that was 2025. Anyway, Pluto defines generations. You know, baby boomers are born Pluto and Leo. You get to like sort of the Gen Jones people, Pluto and Virgo, right? You get to Gen X, Pluto and Libra. You get the millennials, Pluto and Scorpio. You get Zoomers, Pluto and Sag. We got Gen A, Pluto and Capricorn. So the next planet in the Pluto cycle is Aquarius. So Pluto is very much connected to birth, right? That's the nature of Pluto. Pluto is about sex, regeneration, and birth. And Sam Altman, what he's essentially talking about is a personification of Pluto and Aquarius. Because, first of all, that child was not born into this world by organic means, right? Aquarius represents science, the future, things that can be, sort of technological, right? That's Aquarius. So he's actually being really current, au courant, as they say, by bringing a kid in the world with Pluto and Aquarius. And not only that, but he's using Aquarian means to raise the child, which is ChatGPT. Now, by the way, I am not an advocate of this. I'm just telling you that this is part of the cycle and the wave that we're in. And, I wouldn't be surprised if that kid's a CRISPR baby either, right? Because they've got that technology at their disposal. If they wanted a kid with a 200 IQ, they could probably move a few chromosomes around and set it up so that, he's speaking French by the time he's 2 years old, right? So I think that's really something to pay attention to. Birth is going to be different moving forward. It's not going to take on the same kind of biological and organic processes. Now, I thought you were going to play the video of him. I think he's in San Francisco, where he's sitting down with somebody. It's like a convention. He's talking about AI. Have you seen this video that I'm talking about?
No, I guess not. What's...
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. He's basically saying to everybody in that room, right, full room, and everybody that's watching it, that in the not so distant future, AI is going to run everything, and you don't have a choice, and it's going to take care of your needs, and you'll be happy, and everything will be surveilled, right? And it's all part of the process to make sure that everybody stays in line with whatever kind of structure or order that they're going to disseminate through AI. And he's basically telling people like where all this is going. And when you hear it, it is freaking terrifying. And for him, it's just matter of fact. And it's like, well, it's the best thing that's ever going to happen to humanity. And
it's funny you bring that up, because since we've already referenced Brave New World, and Huxley, when we were breaking this down, like I did that in a book club with Jay Dyer, and when we were talking about this several times, Jay reminded everybody who was part of that book club that Huxley wrote that as an apologetic. I mean, he was part of that world. It wasn't like, hey, this could be the future if you don't shape up. It was very Sam Altman-like in the way that it was, hey, this is where we're going. And here we are 100 years later. And I mean, the fact that we've crossed into an era where people openly discuss replacing fundamental human relationships with machines, I mean, that's an archetypal shift. And it's a huge thing. And for people... And I know that there's a lot of, I'm very hesitant about and very skeptical about where AI with larger systems really is going. The fact that we have so many people probably passing medical school with the help of AI during their studies, this is nuts. I mean, I use vidIQ or Claude to help me refine a thumbnail for a stream. but I'm not referring to anything to raise a child or shit like that. And the other scary thing is that at this point, no matter how distant you keep yourself from it, even if it's just if you are in a chat room right now, if you are on a comment section, if it's internet connectivity, if it's connected to the internet and you are participating in any kind of digital conversation, you have contributed at that point with every keystroke to the so-called collective intelligence of one AI system or another, which I'm sure is all going to merge, just like Five Eyes shares intelligence. It's all going to be the same exact thing. We are just by doing this broadcast right now. It is studying human body language, intonation, and of course how people are receiving our conversation. What is favorable? What does that tell? What does that tell the machines about human tendencies to? I don't know, to just process certain information, and what are they going to resist and what are they going to accept? It's crazy. It really is. And, at this point, I guess they can talk very forthright about it because it's seeped into everything.
Oh, for them, it's a done deal, right? There's no question that this is not optional, right? It's not optional, and there's no competing model, right? This is a done deal. This is the way it's going to go. And for them, they're not going to have to play in that world, right? They'll have freedom, they'll have privacy because they're the ones that are creating the rules for that world. I think people really need to wake up. And I'm not anti-AI. I use AI for my thumbnails. And, if I want to fact check something, get a quick stat without having to pour through a bunch of, Google posts, AI can do a reasonably good job providing me with some of those details. But that's really the extent to which I use it. Other people are really invested in it in a much bigger way that I am. And I'm not judging them. It's just that I like to have some control over my world, even though maybe the control is a fallacy.
Indeed.
But I still like to think that I do.
What about, on a natural standpoint, from a brick and mortar standpoint, there's something else that's going on this summer, which I've seen again. I'll just talk about my local area, and that is up here in the Northeast. Anybody from Minnesota up to Maine, down to Virginia, it's great. Not only are we getting weather patterns, weather events that pull together multiple regions of the world. Usually this used to be all very, very compact, so maybe some of my friends in Ohio would say, oh man, the blizzard that we just had, it's coming your way. And a couple of days later, we'll 2 days later, we'll get the remnants of a really bad blizzard or a storm, whatever. But now I feel like at the same time, especially when it comes to this smoke from Canada, this is the third year now in a row, Robert, it is, I don't care what people say, I don't know what policies in Canada could have gotten worse over the last 5 years to make the last 3 years become a trend that we can now mark off in our calendars. There's going to be 2 weeks every summer where the sky goes a weird creamsicle orangey pink, and that you go outside and your eyes and your throat is burning. You can actually see the barbecue smoke wafting by you that's coming from someplace in Ontario. And it's not normal. It never was. But now it's 3 years in a row. And of course, fire has been the story of this summer. Churches, refineries. It's a very strange thing that's going on right now. You can never put out, I don't know how you're seeing that and what that means.
Yeah, so France, first of all, France heat wave, right? And then on top of the heat wave, they have all these fires. And I think they arrested 155 arsonists or something like that in France, actually setting these fires. And the fire is just, engorging huge chunks of land and, getting really close to the Rothschild's vineyards and, some jet propulsion stuff. Really out of control. Right around the same time, these fires in Canada were happening. And to your point, churches, a lot of churches have been set on fire. I think one got set on fire either today or yesterday. We've had refinery fires in both the Middle East, here in Texas, in the Southeast Asia, right? Lots of refinery fires, which impede the ability to, turn either crude or, whatever form of gas into usable fuel, right? Like it's not just like one or two, right? These things are all part of a network. So the fire thing has been, really insidious and borderline out of control. And now they talk about heat domes, right? Oh, now we got a heat dome.
Yeah.
And we have a heat dome over this area and a heat dome over this area. Well, again, to just bring some astrology into the conversation, we are in the sign of Leo right now, which is the sun. And we have Jupiter also in Leo. And today, Jupiter and the sun meet together in a conjunction. And we will not have a Jupiter Sun Leo conjunction again for 12 years. So this is a very interesting time. And so when you add the sun and Jupiter, which is often considered the second sun because it's so gaseous, this idea of heat expands. And when we were talking earlier today, right, I was talking about the connection between physical heat and like metaphysical heat, and that we're kind of being cooked, right? We're being cooked from the outside and we're being cooked from the inside. And the cooking from the inside is that a lot of people are running out of patience. They're frustrated. It doesn't help that we don't have any real clear objective with the war, or when the war might end. And when we think it ends, it doesn't end, right? And now people who are trying to stay abreast of the news, and you're breaking it down that there could be this hybrid between the Ukraine war and the war with Iran, which again, if you're a parent, do you have two children now or just one?
Second one arrives around Thanksgiving.
Okay, so you're a parent and you process all of this. You're processing everything in the world, right? And your wife processes it, and your immediate family, your brother, people connected to your world, who I'm sure have children as well, right? And so what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with this information? Because you've got an investment in the future and the temperature is going up. You cannot not notice it. And you can stick your head in the sand for a while, but it's gonna pop up, right? You may deal with somebody that has road rage, like just out of the freaking blue. They got road rage. Well, how did they get road rage? They got road rage because maybe they got laid off, maybe they stayed at the bar too long, and who knows, man. But this is kind of the world that we're living in now, and we're getting cooked from the inside. So when I talked about those fight clubs, sort of popping off, it's like, in a weird way, that's like a response to this tension and this mounting like anger and frustration that is really growing in the world. People have to have tools in order to discharge that. And that's like the most primal tool that they can, figure out. Hey, let's duke them out here in the park or on the side of the road, right? That's not even like the stuff that you were talking about, which is the constant feed of people beating each other up, right? Like that's, whether or not that's growing, we can talk about that. It certainly adds to the, overall algorithm of not just being online, but living here. So yeah, we're dealing, and again, just let me give you a little astrology around this. The outer planets tend to stick around for a long time. They have really long orbits. So if we look at, we'll start with, well, we can even bring Jupiter into the mix, right? We have Jupiter in Leo, fire. We have Saturn in Aries, fire. We have Uranus in Gemini, air. We have Neptune in Aries, fire. We have Pluto in Aquarius, air. You add up all the air and the fire, what do you get? You get combustibility. Like we are living in combustible times. We're living in a combustible environment. Look at the skies, right? The skies are freaking combustible.
It's like backdraft.
Yeah, right. And it's like, it's out there, but it's also in here with all of us. Like there's no separation in a lot of ways. So we're going to, and by the way, like, again, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of astrology, but we don't get any real solid Earth in the sky until 2030. Oh, what do we know about 2030? Well, that's Agenda 2030, right? That's when Saturn goes into Taurus, and that's like the new land. That's the new land, and we don't even get any we don't get any water in those outer planets either until Jupiter goes into Scorpio, and that's what 4 years from now, past 2030. So we're living, these next 3 years are going to be hot. They're going to be hot. Now, I think there's also potential with those elements. So let's say you're passionate about something, right? Whatever it is, you're passionate about, like your life as a broadcaster, and building out more of Quite Frankly, and like, this is it, man, this is it. I got to do this. I got to do this, right? You have this overwhelming feeling of doing it. Well, the energy is there to do it, right? The energy is literally there to do it. So, if people don't want to, sit on their ass or sit on the sideline and, be demoralized or think of the world as being an unsolvable equation, there's energy there for you to be creative, right? There's energy there to take action. This is not a time to sit around.
Maybe maybe there's enough energy to get everybody to actually commit to a true withholding of taxes. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm seriously, I think about this a lot now. I think about the way that everybody's getting squeezed, but every bit of news that we receive from one source or another is really, like you said before, we're living under one set of standards, and then there is a group that rules over us who spend trillions of dollars in our name. Our lives do not improve at all at the at the spending of those $1 trillion. Nothing's being invested in us. We have no return on investment. And at the end of it, whenever we max out a $500 Old Navy credit card, the dogs come knocking on the door, and they want to collect. They get to raise the debt limit $5 trillion more, because they know that they're going to spend that in at least 3 years. $5 trillion in 3 years. That's about right. And we're spending more than $1 trillion a year. Every time they pass one of these continuing resolutions, it's over $2 trillion. So, people are going to different places with this. And I think that's the big thing. I said this before. One of the things that is making me really feel excited is that there is so much opportunity. As you were calling it energy, you're kind of projecting by way of celestial alignment and how that is how that kind of changes the game or enhances the game in some way. But when I look at just normal people talking in comment sections of one video or another that is expressing one main thing, and that is quality of things are getting worse. Things are getting more expensive, and they suck. Everybody is talking about the past, how much better things were built, how much better the experiences were, the customer service was, how community felt better. It was so much more nourishing. Nostalgia has become we'll get around to this in a second here too. It's become one of those things where I look at the comments, and everybody, I have to imagine that there is a great variance of how people vote in these comment sections, but nobody's really talking politically. They're just talking about what they feel in their gut and what their experience just being out in the world is reflecting right now. And I say to myself, this is great, because what I see is a whole bunch of people who are starting to say, maybe I can't tell you who has done what to make things feel so horrible right now. All I know is that things suck, and that growing consensus means that we're only one step away from making a choice to just get together and do something that doesn't suck. Go out and make new connections. Like, how do you just give people a little bit of inspiration to be proactive now that they have identified a communal pain? That is I think a wonderful thing. Now, the real question is, how can that be co-opted? How that can be co-opted? I think that there are a lot, the Democratic Socialists of America, the Communist Party USA, they have worked overtime and seeing that there is a collective pain there that needs to be exploited, and they're going to try to put their vote in. Hey, follow us. We're going to try to take more out of this and give it back to you. But what they're really just doing is making things worse. I just wonder how that can be taken advantage of in the future. I think it's a really great opportunity, and but I don't know how we get a message out that's wide enough and that's inviting enough to cross so many demographics.
I think it's a great point. And once Pluto went into Aquarius, one of the phrases that I associated with was strange bedfellows, and that what would happen is that people who would have disparate points of view would come together because they would realize that something else was going on, that something else would be either trying to separate and divide us, or to your point, remembering when there was a different time and people, didn't have the same kind of stress, and they didn't have the same kind of, divide and conquer sort of moving through the system, right? And people getting tired of sort of these, in many ways, artificial and engineered affiliations and sort of, tribal affiliations. And whatever you think of these two guys, right? They're both are highly sort of charged and loaded when you bring up their names. But Hunter Biden just did an interview with Nick Fuentes, right? And it's like, are you kidding me? Hunter Biden and Nick Fuentes, like two guys that are really very, very disparate. And yet what they did is they strangely found some common ground and they liked each other, right? Like, go figure. But what's interesting about them, again, astrologically, Hunter Biden is an Aquarius and Nick Fuentes is a Leo, right? So astrologically, they play this role of opposites. And, we're kind of there today, right? The sun is in Leo. The full moon is in Aquarius. So, that's sort of on the table. But the other thing that I think that, we talked a little bit about today, and I feel like it's not just the nostalgia of the 90s or the 80s or the 70s, hell, even the early 2000s, that I think people yearn for. And, I don't know how much you've sort of, tunneled into Tartaria, right? But there's something about Tartaria when you look at the buildings and you ask yourself the question, how did this happen? Right? How did this happen? How did these people do this? How did they build this? And you look at the structures, oh my God, they're beautiful, right? We can't do that now. And it brings up a different kind of nostalgia, right? Like a nostalgia for a golden age that might have actually existed. And then what happened to those people? And then when you kind of move the sort of the scale forward, you run into all these fires, right? Like that's a common theme. So in the 1850s, they start to have all these fires all over the world, right? You have San Francisco, great fire there, great fire in Chicago, all over the place, right? And it's like, well, why is that happening? Were they trying to, consciously burn these structures so that people couldn't like remember them, and the books, right? All these antiquarian books that probably got lost. And going back earlier into our conversation, what are they doing with AI now? They're getting all these books, these really rare books, they're loading them into AI and they're shredding them, right? And they're shredding them. And what's interesting about the Tartaria stuff is it's almost like a social amnesia that takes place, right? And it's like people just don't have any sense as to what happened or what could have been, right? But we look back on it through all these strange buildings and ask ourselves these questions like, how did that happen? How did that work? And at the same time, it's like, man, that's pretty cool. Why can't we have that? And I feel like we're starting to have a micro dose of that, right? We look at the 70s or the 80s or the 90s like a mini version of Tartaria in some ways, because those memories are still with us, right? They're still living inside of us.
Yeah.
But for how long? If they get rid of the books, right, and they change the language and they do all this other shit, and AI comes in and starts bending all the rules, like the world and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but it feels like it could. Like the world that we know, the world that we've experienced, it could all go away.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
no, you know, Robert, on man, you just opened up the door to a lot. I was thinking about not too long ago, and that was as far as I don't know, this concept of shared history, how everything is contested now one way or another. The left generally accepts the historical timelines in general, but attributes it all to, you know, doesn't paint it in a flowery way.
It's all colonialism.
It's all
colonialism.
white European crime against humanity. One crime against humanity by white Europeans after another. That's the left's point of view, but they don't really contest a lot of like the chronology of what happened. On the right, you're starting to see more and more that just everything is literally just a hologram and nothing was ever real. So essentially, you can't walk through a museum with anyone anymore, for better or for worse, because everybody just is just rejecting everything. So we're losing.
Oh, that's fake. That's fake. That didn't happen.
Yeah. So this whole idea of shared concept of history is gone, for better or for worse. But losing our sense of connection to family and friends, that was something else there too. That was part of the nostalgia hit that was really at the core of the Pizza Hut revival conversations we were having a couple of months ago. But I went a step deeper with that the other night as I was staring at a wall. And I said, you know, I think that we're losing also a sense of place, meaning we're losing a sense of locality. For example, we were already brought up Sam Altman, but, you know, Amazon, Uber Eats, Target, streaming services all over the place. We don't talk enough about how it distorts a sense of place. Bowling alleys, arcades, diners, shopping malls, libraries, Pizza Huts, local grocers, and, you know, peddlers, whatever. You know, somebody going up and down the street with your produce right there. You know,
ice cream trucks.
Rob, everything is transactional. No staying and chatting. No familiar faces. And I think that's a big part of the reason why, I don't know if you've seen this, you probably have, you're very observant. But it's part of the reason why this dream core content is so big right now. It's like an offshoot of the liminal spaces genre. It's where you get all these types of POV simulations of living in an analog world again, like the 1980s, the 1990s, around the holidays especially, where you're just sitting in a kitchen and watching someone who could have been your grandmother or your young mother preparing a turkey or something like that, and it's just you're just in it again. It feels very VHS-y. But another thing that is not so surprising is that this kind of nostalgia dripping dreamcore content is also being mixed with horror, where there's just something about it that is brooding. There's something about it that's very unsettling, even though it has all the trappings of a place that was familiar and comforting. And I think that's why I think it's more appropriate than we think, because everyone likes opening up to a yearbook to reminisce about yesteryear and see all your old friends. We were young, somewhat innocent. It's another depth altogether to look into the past and reflect on how that world has simply just vanished, and that there's nothing left but ghosts of that world. You know, it has nothing to do with the fashion from 2004 or 1994. It has nothing to do with the car models of the time. We're talking about a basic sense of security of the time is gone, and that's really what people are looking for. That rock, that foundation, where the styles of the time and the fashion can change whatever the hell else, but the foundation is gone, and that's where a lot of the nostalgia scenes have been poisoned too, because it's mixed with horror.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like that movie Get Out, right? Like it's is that the one that Jordan Peele did?
Yeah.
Like like it's all kind of homey and everything, and sort of like, you know, like kind of 1980s or whatever, but underneath it all, like it's like, you know, it's really creepy and dark. You know, you bring up a really good point. And the other day I was on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this post, but I put this post up on Twitter, and it had to do with Tom Brady, who I think is a lost soul. Like, he's just lost. You know, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with astrology, but he's like a man who has no purpose, and he's trying to define himself in the sort of attention economy, right? And back in the day, when there was a Hollywood, like a real Hollywood, where they had producers and directors, and Hollywood has always been a little weird and, certainly corrupt in pockets and around the edges, but it was an industry and people actually made movies, right? It was like a star making machine. And if you looked at pro football players historically, for some of them, once they were done playing pro football, they migrated to Hollywood. You had Jim Brown, who, had a pretty long acting career in Hollywood. You had people like John Matuzak, who was an actor, Fred Dreyer, who was an actor. You had Tim Rossovich, who was an actor. Dick Butkus was an actor. Bubba Smith was in the Police Academy movies. Ray Nitschke was an actor. So it was a place where pro football players could migrate after their career was over and get some more mileage and make some movies. And some of them were actually not bad. Brian Bosworth, didn't pan out, but he did a couple of Stone Cold movies, or whatever they're called. Back in that world, it would not be out of the ordinary that Tom Brady could have matriculated to Hollywood and become an actor, right? Like, they could turn Tom Brady into a square-jawed action star. He could probably do a comedic role, throw him into an ensemble piece, and eventually kind of work his way up. That's not there anymore. That's gone, right? To your point, the world that existed is no longer there. So what does Tom Brady have to do? He's got to get into a slap fight with Logan Paul. I mean, my God. I mean,
that was pathetic.
It's such a degraded version of the world that we lived in. It's just, and that's just one example, right? And I know you're a music guy, and I think music is starting to make a little bit of a comeback. People are starting to, matriculate back to vinyl. YouTube has done a pretty, I love people like, I really like Beato. I love what Billy Corgan's doing. Andy Edwards, there's some great curators of music on YouTube, and people are really dosing on this, and young people are dosing on it. But, what's going on with music in general, it's really sad. Like the Rolling Stones just put out a new record, which is probably about 80% AI, to be honest with you. And then they'll get out and they'll do the tour. But a lot of these bands, they're not touring. And I was lamenting, right? Like, I've been to some amazing concerts. And I went to this one jazz concert in Berkeley. Incredible. Three-day festival at Berkeley. The day before, just loaded with the best jazz players of all time, right? We're never going to see that again. Like, it's gone, right? It is gone. The idiom is barely there. The buy-in for the audience is barely there. And it's like really, really weird to not just embrace the fact that it was a moment in time and a particular music existed. Like, it's just not there anymore, right? So people are running around and they're celebrating Ella Langley. Like, she's this incredible artist. And look, she's not bad. I think she's got some soul, and I like her better than Taylor Swift. And maybe she inspires some other young girls who, go all country or whatever. I mean, I'm not a huge country person, but that's kind of where we are now, right? We're putting Ella Langley like up on this plateau, and she's got more hits than Mariah Carey, and well, that's great. But what else is going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, what else is happening?
No, yeah, because even though it's more so the presentation, as far as what's everybody wearing and how does everybody carry themselves. It seems everything seems very performative in a cheap way, instead of just cool and sly but I really do. I've seen that stuff. There are people who are taking care of those aspects of culture, and I like how there's a lot of people stepping up inside of all the fights against flock cameras and everything else like that. There are people who are a lot of people who are starting to put a real face on what they want to see coming back and trying to bring that to people, at least pitch them on, hey, this was part of the reason why things were fun back in the day. Let me give you another reason to come to a movie theater, watch an old film, and let me serve you some food in here or something like that. Here is a better experience. Just come back, do something that's in the analog world again. So I guess the last question I have for you, Robert, is I saw a TikTok, not a TikTok video. I'm not on TikTok, but I was on Instagram last night, and I'm going to play this video after you leave. And it was a guy who had an experience, a spiritual, religious experience, just showing up at a gas station and encountering a homeless man. And someone in the comments of that video said, "Well, you're marked now, man. You are marked, and now you got to go out and you got to pay it forward, and you got to spread the good news, and you have to live this." I ask, and I know that there's a way to be marked for good. There are times that you feel like you may be marked by something that is a little bit darker. And I just wonder what you feel about us as a society. Is our rate of waking up and coming to conclusions of coming to better conclusions of where we can go, or ideas of how we can accelerate the healing in proactive, really ballsy ways, is that rate going to be, is the wind going to be at our backs? Are we marked for great things? We still have to walk through the fire. We coming out of this? How do you see us coming out of this in 3 years?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and I like the metaphor of walking through the fire. And I was thinking, like, well, what can I leave Frank and his audience with? And look, I think the human species is on the line, right? We are on the line, and we have to fight for who we are and what's important. And, I talked about being creative, and those things are really, really essential, right? Especially when we live in a demoralized world. But reaching out to other people and staking a claim, like for a long time, the trajectory and the velocity, in culture was like, we got to get out, right? So in traditional Christian circles, be like, well, we're gonna have the rapture. And we're gonna get out of this cesspool, and we're gonna be up in heaven, and we're gonna watch everything, right? And that's basically like evacuating your humanity. In sort of the New Age world, they talk about ascending, right? We're gonna ascend, we're gonna go to the fifth dimension, and all these other people will be here. They just won't see us, right? And I think that we have to go in the other direction. And I think we have to claim our humanity. And when we claim our humanity, which isn't a bad thing, right? It's, we fuck up, we make mistakes, sometimes we're short-tempered with people, but at the end of the day, if you're conscious and aware, you can figure it out, you can apologize, say you're sorry. Like, we have to take a stand. And because I think the stakes are really high. They're really, really high. And if this war escalates and, they're starting to run these AI sims about drafting, we are going to hit a freaking Rubicon here. Right. And that is going to be the Rubicon. Like, are we going to allow our brothers and sisters and our sons and daughters to go walk into a meat grinder? And that's going to be a really, really big thing that we're going to have to face. And I think we're going to have to face it. And that's going to be a test of our humanity. So let's say, for instance, this idea that we get to another level is true, right? Well, how do we prove that we're ready for another level? Well, we prove we're ready for another level by taking a stand for where we are now and saying enough, right? Enough. And that enough it happens on a moment-to-moment basis. What you put in your body, what you buy at the store, how you interact with other people, every single moment is an opportunity to invest in being a human. Now, before I get out of here, I really want to recommend a movie. It's a documentary. It's called My Dinner with Andre. I think it's one of the most important movies ever made. And Andre Gregory's a playwright, and he really gets very deeply into these themes. It was done back in the 80s. It's an incredible film. It's just two guys having dinner, and he gets into this whole idea of humanity, the loss of humanity, turning people into automatons. It's a brilliant movie. So it's a little analog piece from yesteryear for your group here, Frank.
I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. I always love having you back, Robert. You also have a book coming out, or is already out. Tell everybody about that real quick.
Yeah, it's out. So, I had a copy of it. I thought I brought it inside, and I think I left it in the other room. Oh, no, here, I think, hold on a second. No, it's in the other room. It's called Celestial Blueprint, and it's on Amazon, and it's about astrology. So if you're new to astrology, it's going to be really helpful. It's 353 pages, 23 chapters. There it is right there. And if you have a working knowledge of astrology, there's enough meat on the bones for you to get into it. So it's a kind of my own personal evolutionary take on astrology. So it's right there.
There you go. Okay, the Celestial Blueprint. You can find that on Amazon. Oh, man, Robert Phoenix, it's always a great time having you. I can't wait for the next time. Seriously, just whenever you see something that you think will be really great for Quite Frankly, just put it aside. So we just, I don't know, just keep banking it. That's all.
It's always a pleasure. One of these days, I'm going to get out to one of your events, and we'll hang out 3D.
Well, you have a lot of time to plan. It's October 23rd, 2027.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So you got well over a year, October 23rd, 2027. We'd love to have you here at the VIP night on the 22nd, of course, just milling around in the studio, talking to people and all that. So just mark it down. I want this to be like just studded with all of our favorite friends and guests and everything like that. So it would be great to have you here.
Yeah. I say, so I'll do my best to be there.
Okay. Yeah, obviously it's the year. Anything can happen. So
Sure.
I'm only hoping for the best, of course. I'll talk to you soon, Robert.
Take care, Frank.
Be well.
Thanks.
There you go, everybody. Okay.
Now it's just you and me.
It's 8:21. Call in. We talked about a lot there. How people are processing things outside, how you're processing it outside. Where have you found real relief lately? I'm talking more so in that culture area, There's that here, and I'll put something else out there real quick. On being marked. That's really something that I would like for you guys to call in on. I'm going to play that video in just a moment or two, but let me get to the super chats first. We have two. Remember, everybody, tomorrow is Thursday, and I'll tell you, this week, the chances of you winning are really high because not that many entries. And we have silver. I'm going to be adding actually a little bit more. So another 250 anniversary copper and then a 50-cent silver. This is actually a really special one. This was from 1982. It's commemorating the 250th anniversary of George Washington's birth. So you have silver, copper, and then the four Quite Frankly coasters that was made by our woodworking friend out there, Colin. So you're going to get 4 coasters for all of your wonderful perspiring drinks at home, whether they're hot or whether they're cold or whatever. And I'm going to add a secondary prize tomorrow. So precious metals and wonderful, Quite Frankly, coasters. That is going to be for the raffle drawing tomorrow. That's all you need to do to get in on that is to send a super chat, a Rumble rant, Quite Frankly, superchat.com, gold pills. The show really needs your help. And above all, if you would go to quitefrankly.tv/sponsor, if you enjoy this show, I can tell you, I need a couple hundred more people in this audience to become a sponsor. That's a good start. That'll lay us really good groundwork for what the next step I see in the production being, and then, of course, all the other things that we're planning for in 27 and now 28. I've had people reach out, say, listen, we're going to meet you on that Route 66 thing. I said, okay, I'm really excited about this. Justin from Yes Cacao said he's going to get his RV done, get all of his family loaded up. And yeah, there's so much to be excited for. But thank you again so much. And get in on the raffle. Jay Britt says, if Robert Phoenix and Jim Lee had a child, it would be Zach Payne. What? I don't know. You're going to have to like make a family tree or something. I'm going to have to like visualize this. I don't know if I believe that. But I think that Jim Lee is going to call in on Monday. I want him to call in on Monday because I just started seeing all of these AI, military, DHS kind of, or DOD kind of leaks. Weird things going on there. And he's the guy I like tapping for that. Stowstube says, love you, Frank and Franklies. Hope all are well out there. I'm sure everybody is. I hope they are. Hello Kitty says, we actually have an ice cream truck that plays rap music. And they rap about the ice cream flavors. I swear he stops in front of my house while hanging out with the neighbor, leaving his music blasting. That's what Dominic does. Everybody who's been to the jamborees and spring flings, Dominic has been there both times so far. And he just drives throughout town playing You Can Ring My Bell. And when he's parked somewhere, he forgets to turn off the music. I guess he's just like he doesn't hear it anymore, but it's pretty loud. And the speakers aren't that good anymore, so they kind of rattle. And that has to be addressed. Jay Britz, thank you so much again for kicking it all off. Hello Kitty again says, OMG. Am I here again a second time this week? Hi, Frank and Franklies. Hope everyone is having a very wet day. Well, good. I hope you are too. Tefros over on Twitch just resubscribed. Resubscribed for 8 months. Wow, Tefros, thank you. Well, you're in on it now for tomorrow. Over on Rumble, it's good to see everybody hanging out in Rumble. Really wonderful people over there. And Jay Semo, what do you know? Great show as usual. Well, it's great to have you out there as usual too, my friend. Thank you to everybody on Pilled. We'll get to your gold pills in a second. And away we go, shall we? Okay, so you know what? Real quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Frank, you're one talented guy. You're very good. Very good.
Scientists were able to mimic Nessie Amun's voice by recreating his mouth and vocal cords with a 3D printer. It allowed them to produce a single sound.
Oh!
Hey girl, have you heard of Superbia Credit Union? At Superbia Credit Union, it pays to be gay. Come inside. Make a deposit. Because at Superbia, you can make a transaction and get some transaction. What are you waiting for? Superbia Credit Union. We're homosexuals.
I wonder if Superbia Credit Union is actually Superbia Credit Union. Is it still out there? Superbia Credit Union was proposed as the first national LGBTQ-focused credit union aiming to offer whatever. Let me see here. Insurance. Oh, free from discrimination. Yeah, people are discriminating. Founded in concept by Miles Myers, it received initial Michigan regulatory charter approval in September of 2019, but ultimately did not launch operations or open to the public. So what happened? Nobody gave a shit. And all normal normal commerce, people would just be like, okay, yeah, I'm gay, but I'm going to a normal bank. Don't need any of this stuff. Don't need to be borrowing from other gay people. Anywho, so now it's even funnier that we have that credit union, those commercials. Now it's even funnier to know that they're defunct. Oh, I guess it didn't work out. Anyhow, here, take a listen to this. I thought that this was interesting. I had actually a really strange thing happen to me afterwards. But here, this is over on Instagram.
It's not safe to record while driving, but I need to document what just happened to me. I pulled up to the gas station after having very clouded thoughts, and I don't know what happened, but I went to a dark place, and I left where I was at. I registered I needed to put power steering fluid in my car, and I had to park at a gas station next to a homeless man, or who I perceived to be a homeless man. And he, without a better word for it, he had incoherent, high ramblings. And all he said was, "Hey boss, 1350. And I said to him, "But I will give you the change I get before I go inside." I bought my power steering fluid. It happened to be on sale. He didn't know why I stopped. My exact change was 1350. I immediately knew what had just happened. So I ran up to this man. I didn't even care about the power steering fluid at this point. I ran up to this man and gave him all the money I had in my wallet, the 1350, the rest of it. I'm not in a position. I needed that 1350. And I shook his hand and I said, "Sir, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, how much you're loved and respected. And I just really hope you're blessed and have a good meal." And then it flipped like a cutscene and his face changed. I was talking to Jesus. There's no world where this can be faked. I don't want it to be faked. I don't want it. I almost don't want it to be real, because my entire life has been changed for the better. I was a believer and now I'm devout. I have met the conversation I shared with this man, who he only gave me the name of King. I swear to God. The message is too profound for me to put into ignorant words.
Okay.
I know it's not safe.
So now listen.
Safe to record while driving.
Okay, so now I saw that. I gave it a like, make sure I didn't lose it, because I thought this would be an interesting thing to bring up and ask you guys, have you ever been marked? Because it could be marked by something light, by something dark. And you know, I want to zero in on one aspect of this in particular, because, you know, you can make big claims and you can offer no evidence, and people will immediately, no matter what their faith background or whatever the hell where they are in their lives, will be like, well, grain of salt. But this man believes 100% that the experience he had was authentic. And he's unshakable in that respect. So that's the sticking point. You're a changed person after you walk away from an experience like that. Regardless, even if in your, you know, there is a perfectly logical and secular explanation for what happened, but even in your ignorance to that explanation, you are changed because now there's a belief. It can take different forms, you know, near-death experience, miraculous healing, you know, beating all odds, like we were talking last night. Once you see something that you can just latch onto and you say that was real. I mean, we were talking about angelic encounters last night. We didn't get any calls on that, but this reel was just waiting for me when I got home. I said, okay, well, shit. Jumped right over the angel, went right to Jesus. But it's so, but in the comments, there was somebody that said, hey man, you're marked now. You've been marked and now you've got to pay it forward. You got to talk about this. So, you know, I was thinking about this from an individual standpoint and also as a cultural, a larger cultural standpoint. Are we marked? We marked for one journey or another. and does it all. I mean, it's a good journey. Growth doesn't mean it's always going to be sunshine and rainbows the whole way through. So to say that things are rough doesn't mean that we've been marked by evil. It also may mean that we are breaking away from it, breaking away from a kind of, slumber in the darkness, and now all of a sudden we're emerging from that, and that the darkness is clawing at our ankles to draw us back, and we got to just kind of like kick them off. So there's that too. These are the kinds of things I wonder about how you guys are digesting everything. Anyway, 5 minutes after you can call in 914-200-0269. Remember, on the flip side tonight, I'll show you guys the wonderful tooth extraction that I was a part of today as Aurora was standing online to go onto the kiddie roller coaster. So get over here. Bingo bango. And so just to let you know, at the flip side, I have that for you. And to remind me as well so I don't forget. But 5 minutes after this happened, crazy moment in my living room. And it doesn't seem very crazy. But it's crazy because it was so mundane to the outside. The outside observer had to be crazy. I was just laying around on my couch. Just about midnight. I was done with everything. The Yankee game was over. And I was just laying there for a second. And I had gone through some reels, some messages people had sent me and all that, and just seeing if I can send myself anything in email. That's what I do at the end of the night. Sometimes I try to just organize my notes for the next day by sending myself emails of links for here, links for there, just ideas and shit. And it was just a couple minutes after this video where I'm saying to myself, man, I would love to have an encounter with an angel or with Jesus directly. That would be incredible. Anything, or just, and I'm just looking at the belief, like if you are riding on the high of having a life-changing experience like that, it's no longer something that you can ever unsee, unexperience. So I thought that was just great. So about 5 minutes had passed or so. I'm just chilling, thinking whatever, and a plastic water bottle. I don't know what the hell it was. I had grabbed a water bottle out of the refrigerator. I had slugged half of it down. I put it down on a table next to me. And like 5 or 7 minutes later, the water bottle just uncrinkled. There was nothing crazy. It wasn't that loud. It wasn't loud at all. It wasn't anything that would have ever been jarring to me under any other circumstances. It just uncrinkled. It was the most unexceptional sound. One uncrinkle. It was like one syllable. It was like crink. I don't know, just plastic crinkle. But crinkle has 2 syllables. So just think about a crink. And something shot through me that I cannot explain. I spun off of the couch, adrenaline surging, and I felt a presence. There's just something in the room. Was I marked by darkness in that respect? It was very, very strange. It didn't feel unfriendly, but it just felt like there's something here I can't see. There's something going on here, and that it took me a little while to get the adrenaline down. Seriously, like I wake up in the middle of the night to a ring cam. Ring cam could with that jingle jangle. Oh my gosh! 3 o'clock in the morning, you get ripped out of a sleep because there's movement in your backyard. There's a person in your backyard, and the person ends up being a raccoon. Like, you son of a bitch. I was less startled by that than this. It was very strange. So, but it was this unshakable feeling that there was just someone in the room with me, and had to calm down a little bit after that, and went on with my way. So just wondering about that. Okay, let's take a call. Aaron Moriarty, you're on the show. What's going on?
Hey, Frank. I did have something in my life that changed my belief system. And I think I may have talked about it before, but it was just such a profound event, and I'll never forget it. I was a scientific evolutionist my whole life, and in the 80s, mid 80s, 83 or 84, I was working at Hasbro, living in Rhode Island. I was an industrial designer, and I was home at night. I lived alone. And there was a radio program on, and this guy was talking about astral projection and how to do it. You cross your hands over your chest, and you're laying down, and you just relax your toes and your feet all the way up till your whole body is relaxed, and you can't even feel yourself breathing. And then you simply sit up without sitting up. And now, I didn't have any preconceived notions whether it would or wouldn't work. I was just curious. And I came out of my belly, and I was a round ball about 8 to 12 inches in diameter, a ball of nothing, but I could see in every direction simultaneously in crystal clear vision that I've never been able to see before. And it just kind of freaked me out, but I kept going up at that same sit-up speed. And I was just amazed. I could see the walls, the ceiling, my body below me. When I got about 3 or 4 feet above my body, I just realized that I had no connection to that body. And that I intrinsically knew that that body contained memories and experiences that I had no connection to. And then I realized I'd lived many, many, many lives. No number could even be thought of for it. And none of those lives were registering either. I was just happy to be out. And then I realized, hey, I could go to Jupiter, I could go to the moon, I could go to the sun, because I have no feelings. I'm a ball of nothing. And then I realized, wait a minute, I've already done all those things, and it's really boring to know everything. And then I saw above me this stream of knowledge, kind of this gray, almost like a blood vessel of knowledge that I knew I could pluck mentally anything out of. And I plucked a little white flower that came before me, and then it disintegrated to its basic core elements. And I had the re-knowing of, oh yeah, that's why a flower is designed that way. And I thought, that's odd, because that's anti to my belief of being a scientific evolutionist. Even leaving your body is not congruent with that. And as I kept going up, and I think that was the Akashic records that I was accessing. Years later, I learned about that. But as I started going through the ceiling, because I kept going up at the same rate, I didn't stop. I didn't change the speed I was going. I could see the upper inside of the ceiling, the darkness and the nails and the dust and the insulation, the light fixture, and still can see my body below me. And that frightened me. And I zoomed back into my chest and it made a thump. And I had the worst case of pins and needles I've ever had in my life over my whole body. And I had to rub my arms and my legs to get the blood going again. And I was just dumbfounded, like, what was that? Did that really happen? And over the decades after that, I tried to imagine being a ball of nothing and seeing in all directions. I couldn't put it together, even though I'm a very creative person. And I just had to relent, and you know what? There is something beyond this life, and it is super amazing. And it's not what I've heard any other person talk about. I've only heard 2 other explanations of being a ball and being able to see in all directions. So a few other people have, including Andrew Basiago. He had that same experience of seeing in all directions and being.
Well, that's that's very interesting, and it sounds a lot like the other, like when we were talking to Dr. Albert Taylor. That sounds very much like his astral travels and all that there too. Also, but in that respect, you were still, that supposed silver cord, you still had that energetic umbilical cord to your body. You weren't done with it yet, so you weren't passing on. So I don't know. That's it. And I'm just only comparing this to other stories that have been told on this show. Either way, you're seeing things through a non-physical set of eyes, and you're bringing back some kind of information that could give you a little bit of confirmation that you are seeing things that you have left. You have another perspective that could only be because your experience was authentic. The real question is, we start getting down to the nature of one thing or another. And thank you for the call. There you go. That is life changing. Once you see things from a different perspective, not attached to your body, that is life changing. How the hell can it not be? Now, as far as the whole living countless lives and all that, I just personally hate. I can't tell you theologically. I can't really get into theological stuff. I'm not equipped to do it. Just can't do it. To refute or support the idea of reincarnation. I just know that I personally hate it. I personally hate the idea of reincarnation. Just personally hate it. Maybe somebody out there would really, really like to have another try in different circumstances with different parents and different family, different part of the world. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are just like, you know what? I'd really like another do-over. Because there's a lot of things from the beginning I wasn't able to choose for myself, and it wasn't really that good. I understand it. I've talked to people like that who didn't have good childhoods and stuff. Me personally, I would like to keep this group together, and I hate the idea, absolutely loathe the idea of closing my eyes for the last time and being born in fucking Calcutta. Man, that would suck. That would suck. And the whole idea of like losing Aurora and Lauren and my parents, and because they shot off somewhere else to start a new journey without me. Nope, I'm too fucking possessive for that. I'm too possessive for that. And it's not even just like no, it's just something. It's like, no, I don't like it. Don't like the idea at all. And I don't want to be born in India. Please, don't ever make that a thing. That would be awful. Oh my gosh. All right, let's take a call. 575. Go ahead. Who's this?
This is Blue Indian. How you doing, Frank?
Blue Indian, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, just a little comment about kind of like the subject at hand. It's I'm kind of a breed, which means I'm part Native American and part, I guess, European kind of blend.
Okay.
Anyway, a lot of the elders that I hang out with from different tribes, they've talked about these times. And I don't know if you've ever heard about the veil, or what they call the veil. I guess
very briefly, I had picked it up, some idea about the veil. Who the hell I was going to be talking to? I don't know. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was going to bring on a, I don't think they were Hopi. I forget what Indian Native American nation it was. And I had this whole show written. It had to be like 2021, 2022, and it fell through. And I had a whole bunch of stuff like that being brought up between that and skinwalkers and everything else. But yeah, go ahead and talk a little bit about what you know.
He brought up the Hopis. They have a prophecy out there, and it's similar to a lot of different tribes. But basically, what it's saying is this is like end times, or just a transition, and humanity is going to go one of two paths. And so, if you go the one path, it's kind of like a new birth. And the other path is kind of like a downward spiral, kind of destructive path. And I say during these times, what they call the veil, it gets thin. And so the thinner it gets, you're beginning to like bleed into alternate realities, I guess the only way I could describe it. And they talk about beings and critters and all kinds of things that nobody's ever seen before that are going to start like manifesting into our reality. And when you were talking about earlier about, with the water bottle and all that, it could be something like that, just a little bleed over. And I don't know, people have been talking to me about like strange things like that where they're just noticing, just something peculiar about the times that we're in. And they have similar experiences. They don't know, just like I don't know what the hell is going on, but I always consider, what the elders tell me is going to happen. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I don't know if you ever, I don't know if you've ever listened to or read anything from Carlos Castaneda. Did you ever?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well there's
all of them.
Okay, so then you know about the eagle.
Yeah, there's a lot. I know about mescalito. He's real popular.
Right. So I mean,
each one of the medicines that Castaneda talks about, there's various ones like shrooms and peyote and some certain types of tobacco and so forth. A lot of different things will artificially bring you through the veil a little bit and give you vision. And actually, you can certain other things like ayahuasca, you can hyperspace, you can jump the whole thing and go into the alternate reality. And that's what Castaneda was talking about.
Okay. Well, we definitely have to get into this a little bit more. I wish I wasn't running out of time. Thank you for calling in, because very
You're welcome, Frank.
Well, do it more often, especially if you have any kind of perspective from a tribal standpoint, because that's always very interesting, and we don't have a lot of that. We've never had a lot of that just contributed to the show in the past. So thank you.
Well, my elders tell me that the ceremonies that we do, and I'm a ceremony kind of person. I do one particular one that's based in love for the entire humanity. But anyway, they tell me that once all the indigenous ceremonies are gone, in other words, they get rid of us all and the ceremony stops, that's the end for humanity. We're done.
Well, okay. Well, then, I mean, it seems like everybody has an origin story. Everybody has a flood story, and they also have an end time story. And there's a lot of crazy overlap there too. And perhaps people have certain portions, but not the full revelation of everything. Maybe there's just always that information that was there, written from the beginning, and then. I'm looking at over here from Washington Post in 1981, June 6, 1981, about Carlos Castaneda's eagle thing, the most fascinating and controversial parts of Carlos Castaneda's cosmology. Also important to understand that there's no independent evidence that Don Juan existed, or that any of these metaphysical claims are true. But here's really with the eagle's gift. Don Juan tells Castaneda that behind all existence is an incomprehensible force called the eagle. And it only appears that way, so it's not actually a giant bird. It appears that way to the seer because the human mind needs to recognize a recognizable symbol for something beyond comprehension. And that the eagle creates living beings, and it lends each creature awareness, and that during life, awareness grows richer through experience, and that at death, that awareness returns to the eagle, which then consumes it. And the whole point here in this in this story, where it starts becoming a little bit more unique, is this whole loophole where you can actually not You can train yourself in life energetically so that in death you do not surrender the awareness. In a sufficiently, I don't know, like, well, it talks a lot about the warrior, but that a warrior that's sufficiently developed can actually retain that awareness and pass through an opening instead of being consumed. And like I said, it's interesting stuff. Talked a lot about that stuff with Rob. Rob gave me some things to read on all that because it's just really interesting. I don't know how deep we went into it in the past, but I thought, just in thinking about reincarnation, that horrible idea. So I was thinking to myself, that sounds a lot like, even though there's so many amazing things that you can experience on this earth, to have to do it all over again, over and over and over and over again, that does sound like almost like an AI respawn hell. That really does. Like to be able to find peace and to find salvation and to get past that trap. So the straight and narrow, the way and the truth, that's where that comes together for me. And in my limited understanding, what I try to stay focused on. And then who the hell knows, man? Who the hell knows? It's 8:56. We'll take one more call. Let's go. 406, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank. How's it going? Longtime fan here. I wanted to share that you inspired me to start my own podcast, which is coming out soon.
Great.
I wanted to get some quick advice from you, if that's okay. I know it's an off-topic thing, but I'll make it very quick.
Okay.
I really love the quality of your sound, like your audio. And I know you mentioned that you used OBS. Is that correct?
That's the video encoder, yeah.
Okay. I was curious what you used to capture your guest audio, because I've tried using OBS on my own podcast, and I noticed that sometimes, like, it peaks a little bit, like the end of some sentences will get cut out. And I'm just kind of curious if you had any recommendations for that.
Well, I would look into your sound system and whatever your, like, if you use for example, I had a very involved sound system before. Thank you for the call. If you need anything else, just email me, just so we don't take up the last thing. We had a very involved stack of sound condensers and feedback destroyers and mixers and all that other stuff for the first 10, 12, 13, 14 years or something like that. And then about, I don't know, maybe about 3 years ago, so maybe 17 years. 3 years ago is when I condensed all of that stuff into just the Rodecaster. And it makes things so easy. I'm telling you, anybody who starts a project like this it's just so fucking easy. Like, there's no work involved anymore. Aside from actually showing up for 20 years and doing it, there's that. But I would say whatever the hell you have processing and capturing your audio, go into the settings and make sure that the noise gate is down. It sounds like whether it's system sounds or whether it's just somebody calling in from Zoom or another person in the room on a microphone, it sounds like your noise gate is too high. Where if you're not going past that threshold, it'll almost like cut off something that's a little bit lower to clean up the sound. And I would look into that. Okay, well, let's do real quick one more so we don't end on that note. 216, you're on the air. You're the last caller of the night. Go ahead.
Frank, I really appreciate Robert, and I really want your listeners, all of us, to hold on to what he said about using the energy that's in planet system to use it for positive, connect with people, serve your neighborhood, serve anyone in need that you know, and we can win this. This is a battle for humanity. I truly believe it, and we need to be warriors in Christ and save humanity. That's all I have to say.
I love it. That's a great you want to say goodnight to everybody on my behalf?
I would love to. Hold on to your faith and believe in Christ believe in yourself, and save the world.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, hey, that's all we have for tonight. Let me make sure I didn't lose anybody's super chats. Over on Rumble, we have Denuber Dude says, great show. Thank you, Denuber. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you out there. And then, of course, CFD Grunt says, good show tonight. Thank you. Thank you, my friends, for the support. Mark the Carnivore just threw a little bit into the pot. Says, here's something for the best show out there. Thanks for doing what you do. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Badger Joe says, here's for the Tooth Fairy. Oh, 50-cent piece. Lauren texted me before. She said, do you have any money for the Tooth Fairy? I said, there's a little thing on my desk. It's like it's an artillery shell that's been cut off and hollowed out so that you can put pens and other stuff in it. I said, I think there's like a 50-cent piece or something interesting in there. She doesn't know the value of it. It'd be good. 50-cent pieces are awesome. Get her one of those. And so we'll see with that. So this will go towards something just as important. Thank you, Badger Joe. Love you. Molly Artie says, if you know, you know. And Badger Joe says, great show. Thank you. Jay Britz, Robert Phoenix, and Jim Lee. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a look at that later on. All right. With everybody on Pilled, I'm going to be talking to you guys in just a moment. Molly says, we are all marked. It shows in just that spot below your nose and above your lips. When we are marked, we forget sometimes. We need a reminder to pass on the blessing. Yeah. Just like when a pirate is marked, when you get the black spot. Uh-oh. Watch out. Not the black spot. Okay, guys. I will see you on the flip side. I'm going to put the link in the chat room right now. Come by for a few minutes. It's a lot of fun, and there's no paywall or anything like that. It's just a quick jump on over in the chat. Come to the flip side. And that's an Instagram link. What the hell does that mean? Hold on. Copy. There you go. And if you can't see the link anywhere, then just simply open up another tab in your browser and go quitefrankly.tv and then press play, and I'll be there. Thank you all so much. I will see you tomorrow.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with Mark the Carnivore, Badger Joe, Molly Artie, Badger Joe again, Jay Britz, Stove Hello Kitty, Jay Britz, and Hello Kitty and Tefros. Thank you. We got full participation from all the platforms. Thank you to our Rumble Ranters, our Gold Pillars. Let's hit that 10K nightly mark, and I'll be there in just a moment. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Love you.